I welcome you all for my today's class on the topic polyps. This topic comes under the benign lesion of uterus itself. We have covered about the fibroid, especially the uterine fibroid, cervical fibroid, and the last topic in the benign lesions of uterus is a very interesting and a short topic which is called as a polyps. So coming to the definition of a polyp, how you will define a polyp? What is the difference between other growths and a polyp? How can you call a growth as a polyps? So the definition of polyps is a clinical entity. It is a clinical entity referring a tumor attached by a pedicle. So polyps is referred to a tumor which is having a pedicle, or the tumor which is attached with the pedicle is called as polyps. So whenever the tumor is there, it has a base and it is attached or it is hanging with a pedicle, then such tumor or such growth is called as polyps. Okay, so three main types of polyps are seen in the uterus and the cervix. They are of mucous polyps, fibroid polyps, and the placental polyps. So these three are the very commonly occurring polyps in the female genital tract. Those are, first is the mucous polyps, second is the fibroid polyps, and the third one is the placental polyps. Okay, so coming to first the mucous polyps. The most common type of benign uterine polyps is the mucous one. So mucous polyps is a very common benign uterine polyps. As the name itself suggests, it is arising from the mucosa of the uterus. Okay, so then the name itself suggests it is a mucous polyps. Mucous polyps means it is arising from the mucous layer of the uterus and also from the cervix. So it may arise from the body of the uterus, mucosa of the body of the uterus or the innermost layer, and also from the cervix. So coming to the risk factors involved in the development of polyps are HRT, that is nothing but the hormone replacement therapy, tamoxifen therapy, which especially is given for the breast cancer patients, and if the patient is suffering from any known general health issues like diabetes, hypertension, obesity, increased patient age are the important risk factors. So coming to the pathogenesis, first about the body of the uterus. If the polyps is present on the body of the uterus, then how it is formed. So usually it is formed from a thick endometrium. As you know, the mucosa or the innermost layer of the uterus is nothing but the endometrium. So a part of the thick endometrium projects into the cavity and ultimately it attains a pedicle. Then it is formed as a polyp. So what happens, the polyps or the mucous polyps which is arising from the body of the uterus, how it is formed is a part of a thick endometrium starts projecting into the cavity. Then later, after some times, it attains a pedicle and it is formed into a mucous polyps of a uterine body. So the coming to its appearance, necktie appearance, how it looks like, it shows a small polyp size of about 1 to 2 centimeter. Usually it is small in size is around 1 to 2 centimeters. It looks reddish and feels soft. So unlike tumors are firm in touch. They are hard bodies, firm in touch. Unless and until they undergo degeneration, you cannot find the softness in them. But here, these polyps are soft. They are small in size usually, hanging with a pedicle and reddish. Feels is soft. The pedicle may at times be long enough to make the polyps protruded from the cervix. Sometimes the follicle is such a long that the uterine body cervix starts coming out from the cervix into the vagina. So it looks like it is a cervical polyps, but but its origin is from the uterine body itself. So because of the long pedicle, it comes out from the cervix. Sometimes it happens. So coming to the different types of polyps, the polyps are again classified into the benign and the malignant because there are chances of malignancy also. So coming to the benign polyps, there are three main types: mucous polyps, fibroid polyps, and placental polyps, as I have told you. So malignant polyps are again two types: de novo and secondary changes of the benign polyps. De novo means it is a new growth, means directly the new growth which is a malignant in nature itself, and second variety is secondary changes of the benign polyps. That means the benign polyps may become cancerous in future, or they may undergo the changes, or they may turn into a malignant polyps, is called as the second variety of malignant polyps. So coming to the microscopic structure of a mucus polyp. The core contains stromal cells, glands, and large thick wall vascular channels. The surface is lined by endometrium. The tip may undergo squamous metaplasia. The squamous tissues replacement will be there. Malignant change is rare but may coexist with the endometrial carcinoma. See, here chances of these polyps to become malignant are also there if it is associated with endometrial cancer. If the woman is already having endometrial cancer and she develops some mucus polyps from the uterine body, then there are chances of turning that benign polyp into the malignant one is also there, but it is rare, less chances. The pedicle contains thick fibrous tissue with thin blood vessels. So the pedicle contains thin fibrous tissue along with thin blood vessels. Blood vessels are also there to supply to these polyps. Rarely the smooth muscles invade the polyp. Usually the smooth muscles are not seen in the polyps, but sometimes smooth muscles are also invade the polyps, and then in such condition that polyps is called as adenomyomatous polyps. When the smooth muscles enter into the pedicle of a polyps, then it is called as adenomyomatous polyps. So these are all about the changes which polyps may undergo. It may become malignant. Sometimes some smooth muscles invade inside and they turn into the adenomyomatous polyps, etc. Coming to the predictor of malignancy. So what are the chances that a polyp may become malignant? First is about the size. When the size becomes more than 10 mm, that means when the size of a polyp is increasing and it becomes more than 10 mm, then there are chances of the polyps to turn into the malignant one. Second is postmenopausal status. Yes, if the woman is of postmenopausal age, then there are more chances of malignancy. Then abnormal uterine bleeding. If a woman is suffering from AUB, abnormal uterine bleeding, and she is having polyps, then you have to think about the malignant changes of it. Okay, see here, that is a diagram showing the cervical mucus polyps. You can see here a small mass is coming out from the cervix. So this is a cervical mucus polyps, polyp which is arising from the cervical mucosa. Coming to the clinical features of a mucus polyp, there may not be any symptoms. Sometimes there may not be any symptoms. That this entity is accidentally discovered during the speculum examination. And see, the polyps which are arising from the cervical mucus, especially from the endocervical mucosa, is called as a cervical mucus polyps. And you is coming to the symptoms, there may not be any symptoms, but it is again the accidentally discovered during the speculum examination. If you are doing speculum examination for any other condition, then you can find the polyps. So sometimes polyps may not produce any symptoms. Sometimes it is discovered during the procedures like hysteroscopy or hysterosalpingography, that is usually done for infertility patients. There you will find a filling defects. Their dye cannot pass and you will find a filling defect. So you can come to know that there is possibility of polyps. Coming to the symptoms of a cervical polyps, it is there will be irregular uterine bleeding if the polyps is in the cervix, either pre or post menopausal. See, irregular uterine bleeding will be there. Then contact bleeding if the polyps is situated at or outside the cervix. There are chances of contact bleeding. Contact bleeding means whenever the contact occur, whenever there will be touch to the polyps, it leads to bleeding. That is a contact bleeding. Excessive vaginal mucus discharge will be there. Excessive vaginal discharge may be there, and sometimes it is offensive in smell. Multiple endometrial polyps may cause infertility or miscarriages in young women. Usually a small polyp may not produce that much complication, but if multiple endometrial polyps are there, then it may lead to even infertility and miscarriages in the woman. Coming to its signs, unless the polyp is at or outside the external os, no positive finding is present. So you will not find any positive finding unless the polyp is around the cervical os or at or outside the cervical os of the cervix. However, if it protrudes out of the cervix, it feels soft, slippery, and in small in size. And you can only find it when it comes out from the cervix. You'll find soft, slippery, and small masses coming out. On perspeculum, it looks reddish in color, usually attached with a slender pedicle. So next is about the fibroid polyps. As the name itself suggests, it is a fibroid which may turn into a polyp called as a fibroid polyps. The fibroid polyps may arise from the body of the uterus or also from the cervix. From both these places it can arise, either from the body of the uterus or from the cervix. Coming to its pathogenesis, body of the uterus. First, fibroid polyps is almost always due to extrusion of a submucous fibroid into the uterine cavity. How the fibroid polyps is formed is always because of the extrusion of a submucous fibroid. As you all know, submucous fibroid is arising from the innermost, that is the mucosa of the uterus. So usually the intramural fibroids, when they are pushed inwards, it forms the submucosal fibroids. Submucosal fibroids arising from the interior or the inner side of the uterine cavity. From it only the fibroid polyps is formed. During this process, it attains a pedicle which is often broad and usually attached to the posterior wall. So during the process of exclusion of a submucous fibroid, it attaches with a pedicle. So whenever the submucous fibroids attached with the pedicle, it forms a fibroid polyps. The torn ends of the pseudocapsule are retracted in the base of the pedicle. The uterus contracts to expel the polyp out, and as a result, the polyp may be pushed out through the cervix to lie even in the vagina. Coming to its appearance, in the naked eye appearance, the polyp is usually single, of varying sizes. There may be evidences of necrosis, infection and hemorrhages, especially at the tip. So there are chances of necrosis, infection and hemorrhages on the tip of the fibroid. The pedicle is broad usually if it is of fibroid polyps, because fibroid having the no pedicle, but when it starts coming inside, then only it attains a pedicle. So usually in the fibroid polyps, the pedicle is somewhat broader compared to other types of polyps. There may be associated other varieties of fibroids in the uterus. Microscopically, the polyp including the pedicle is covered by endometrium, as it is arising from the mucosa, that is, it is arising from the submucous fibroid. So it is usually covered by the endometrium. In the tip, there may be squamous metaplasia. The core of the polyp is composed of fibrous muscular structures. The pedicle is composed of fibrous tissue with cylinder blood vessels. Coming to the cervical fibroid polyps. Cervical fibroid polyps usually arises from the ectoderm or from its posterior lip. See, there are two sides of origin of a cervical fibroid polyps. It usually arises from the ectocervix. Cervix can be divided into two, endocervix and ectocervix. So it arises from the ectocervix, that is from the external part of the cervix, and from its posterior lip. So cervix has two lips, anterior and posterior. So it may arise from its posterior lips. It may be small and usually single. Usually it is single. At times it is big enough to distend the vagina or even comes out of the introitus, confusing the diagnosis of uterine inversion. There is one more condition where the uterus is inverted, completely it is inverted and comes out. So that condition is called as uterine inversion. So usually cervical fibroid polyps are small, so will not get any confusion in the diagnosis, but sometimes it becomes big enough to distend the vagina and even it comes out of the introitus, so confusing the diagnosis with the uterine inversion. See, in this figure you can see here, this is a fibroid polyps. See here, you can see the white pedicle and thinning out of the cervix. Coming to its symptoms, the patients are usually in reproductive age. The chief complaints are intermenstrual bleeding. So this type of fibroid can produce intermenstrual bleeding, that is the bleeding in between the periods. Often continuous, the bleeding is often continuous, especially in the fibroid polyps arising from the body of the uterus. And cloaky pain in the lower abdomen, usually due to the uterine contractions. In an effort to expel the polyps out of the uterine cavity, the woman gets a cloaky pain in the lower abdomen. And excessive vaginal discharge, which may be offensive in nature. Sensation of something coming out when the polyps becomes big, distending the vagina. So whenever, as I've told you, in cases of cervical fibroid polyps, when it becomes big, it distends the vagina. So in such cases, women may feels a sensation of something coming out, and something coming out when it distends the vagina, when the polyp becomes bigger and it's distends the vagina. It may remains asymptomatic also. Sometimes polyps is there but there is no symptoms at all. It is accidentally discovered while doing other investigations for other problems. Signs: general examination reveals varying degrees of anemia, because the complaint is intermenstrual bleeding. So chances of intermenstrual bleeding is there, which may lead to anemia. Per vaginum PV examination, the uterus may feel bulky sometimes, cervix may be patulous, and the tip of the polyps is felt, or else the polyps is felt distinctly outside the external wall. Sometimes you will find the cervix, and the tip of the polyps is felt on the cervix if it is in the endocervix, or if the polyps is felt distinctly outside the external walls. Otherwise you can directly feel the polyp coming out from the cervix. Speculum examination, it reveals the size and color of a polyp, which is usually pale, may be hemorrhagic. Whereas the attachment of the pedicle to the cervix can be visualized, but the attachment higher up may be at times difficult to locate. Okay. Investigation: TVS, transvaginal sonography. The polyps is seen as an echogenic mass in the TVS scan. Saline infusion sonography is a gold standard method for the polyps. It is seen as a echogenic mass, which better compared with the TVS. Compared to TVS, saline infusion sonography is considered as best. The hysteroscopy to visualize the uterine polyps, and simultaneously the polypectomy could be done. So while performing the hysteroscopy, you can directly go for polypectomy or the resection of the polyps under the guidance of hysteroscopy. Hysterography to detect the filling defect in the fibroid polyps. Examination under general anesthesia can also be done. An exploration of the uterine cavity by curate or ovum or ring forceps can help in diagnosis of a uterine polyps. You can directly go for the examination under general anesthesia, and with the help of a ovum or forceps, you have to do for curate. Meanwhile, while doing curate, you can diagnose the presence of a uterine polyps. In all cases following polypectomy, histological examination should be done. See, after doing or following polypectomy, you have to send the sample for histopathological investigation to rule out whether it is a benign polyp or a malignant polyp. Sound test. There is one test called as sound test for the differential diagnosis to differentiate a fibroid polyps with a chronic inversion. Sound test is done. What is a sound test? It is a you have to take a uterine sound. Uterine sound is an instrument. I'll show you. See, this is a metallic graduated instrument called as a uterine sound. Usually it is used in gynecology to measure the position and the size of the uterine cavity. So this instrument is used here to differentiate a fibroid polyps with a chronic inversion. It is called as a sound test. If an uterine sound is passed all round between the pedicle and the dilating cervical canal, then it is a polyps. If you can pass a uterine sound easily in between the pedicle and the dilating cervical canal, then you can say it is a polyp. In incomplete chronic inversion, the sound cannot be passed because uterus is completely outside, and it is inverted and comes out, so you cannot pass the uterine sound in it. If you are able to pass the sound inside, then it means it is a fibroid polyps. So this is called as a uterine test, which is used to differentiate a fibroid polyps with a chronic inversion. See, this is a diagram of a cervical fibroid polyps, which may be confused with the inversion. And here the catheter is passed into the urethra and another in the cervical canal. So this is a cervical fibroid polyps, confusing diagnosis with the chronic inversion. Here you can see the uterine sound is passed into the cervical canal. That means it is a cervical polyps. If you are unable to pass the uterine sound, it means it is a chronic inversion. And third variety is called as the placental polyps. Placental polyps, yes, the name, as the name itself suggests, it arises from the placenta. So placental polyps. So how it is originated is a retained bit of placental tissue a retained bit of placental tissue, when adherent to the uterine wall, get organized with the surrounding blood clots, forming a tumor having a pedicle called as a placental polyps. Usually placenta is completely removed out after the delivery, but sometimes what happen, a retained bit of a small bit of placenta tissue remains adherent into the uterine wall, and then it becomes attached with the surrounding blood vessels. Then it starts producing or hanging with a pedicle. It forms a mass type, and it starts coming out with a pedicle, or it attains a pedicle inside. So such a polyps is called as a placental polyps. So clinical features, there is a history of recent childbirth or abortion. So usually it is seen in ladies who have undergone delivery recently or abortion. Irregular bleeding per vaginum or offensive vaginal discharges are presently dated back to the pregnancy event. So patient usually gives a history of bleeding per vagina or offensive vaginal discharges following the delivery or abortion. Since then she is having the bleeding per vagina or offensive vaginal discharges, then you can get an idea of the placental polyps. Coming to the management of a polyps, endometrial polyps may be removed by doing hysteroscopy and resection. So you can perform hysteroscopy simultaneously. You can resect with the help of a resectoscope. Directly you can cut under the guidance of hysteroscopy the endometrial polyps. It can also be removed by the uterine curettage or using ring or ovum forceps. With the help of a forceps, with the help of a twisting motion or the twisting movement of the polyps, you can remove a small polyps while doing uterine curettage. In cases of reoccurrence and patients who have completed the family, hysterectomy is justified. Yes, hysterectomy can also be done when the woman is completed her family and she is menopausal age. Directly you can go for the hysterectomy. The causes of reoccurrence of polyps are incomplete removal, persistence of cause leading to polyps formation, malignancy. See, there are three main causes of reoccurrence of polyps. After removal, also there are chances of reoccurrence of polyps in cases of its incomplete removal. That means its pedicle is there, or you have cut half of the polyp and remaining base is there only. Then there are chances of reoccurrence of polyps. Sometimes persistence of a cause, if the cause is there, like if she is using hormonal contraceptives or any other cause, then it may again reoccur. Then malignancy, if it is a malignant type of polyp, then there are chances of reoccurrence. Cervical polyps are removed by twisting of the pedicle. See, if cervical polyps are there, it can easily be removed with the help of a twisting, with the help of any forceps, with a twisting movement. The base of the polyp should be cauterized to prevent reoccurrence. So the method is, you have to cauterize the base after removing the polyp to prevent its reoccurrence. Hysteroscopy is usually useful to, it is done and it is very useful to locate the position, size and base of the polyps. Submucous fibroid polyps can be resected out hysteroscopically as an outpatient basis. Endometrial biopsy, that endometrial polyps that causes infertility, postmenopausal bleeding or abnormal uterine bleeding may be removed hysteroscopically under the direct visual. See, endometrial polyps may even cause infertility, so they are considered as more troublesome, and they can even cause a postmenopausal bleeding and abnormal uterine bleeding. So they can be removed hysteroscopically under the direct vision. With the help of a hysteroscope, directly you can visualize the endometrial polyps and you can remove it. So it is better than removing it with a blind curettage procedure and all. So it is better. After the polyp is removed, endometrium is curated to rule out any coexisting pathology. Histologically the polyps may be adenomatous, that is mostly 80% of chances are there. Cystic, fibrous, vascular, fibromyomatous. There may be ulceration of the dependent portion of the polyps. Malignant change of an endometrial polyp is extremely rare, only 0.5% chances are there. Last point is big fibroid polyps lying in the vagina. One should be sure that it is a polyps and not a uterine inversion or fibroid with inversion. So diagnosed polyp, removal of the polyps by morcellament. Morcellament is nothing but you have to cut the big polyps into small pieces. Morcellament or morcellation it is termed as piecemeal. That means you have to cut the small or the big one into small pieces, and afterwards it is followed by transfixation suture on the pedicle and removal of the redundant pedicle distal to the ligature. Associated with chronic uterine fibroid, if the big fibroid polyps it is associated with the chronic uterine polyps, then the incision is made close to the fibroid and to enucleate it. You have to make an incision close to the fibroid and you have to enucleate it, remove it. When hysterectomy is indicated, the polyps of such type are expected to be infected and are to be removed first. So if you are in wherever the hysterectomy is indicated, such fibroids who are infected has to be removed first, then you can go for the hysterectomy to reduce the chances of infection. And to reduce the chances of infection, antibiotics are to be administered. The general condition of a patient is to be improved, and hysterectomy should be done after some days or few days later. The polyp should be sent for histological examination after its removal to confirm whether it is a benign polyps or malignant one. So this completes the polyps chapter. So we have seen the definition of polyps, three main types of polyps: mucous polyps, fibroid polyps, and the placental polyps. Its sign and symptoms, its investigation methods, and differential diagnosis, histology, and its treatment. Thank you.